Tell me a little bit about your history, the history of Mac Fox, and how you got into where you're at today.
Uh, well, I played in a bunch of local Minneapolis bands, and probably from my love of Gary Newman, uh, sometime in the mid to late 90s, I started using MIDI and sequencing and synthesizers, and that sort of led to Mach FoX, I suppose. There was a lot of experimentation in the early days of MIDI. I didn't really know how to program or what I was doing, so it was a lot of just connecting the machines and letting them go crazy and figuring out how to get rid of the craziness and harness the parts I liked.
Yeah. What inspired you to get into music in the first place?
I don't know, but I certainly remember always sitting in the car and listening to the radio and being interested in what was going on. Music always grabbed me. I suppose, my parents don't play instruments, but I think my dad, through listening to records and me finding the radio, and it didn't matter what it was, it could be the sappiest pop song or Jimi Hendrix, something on the harder end of the spectrum of the rock era, and I would still find something I liked about it.
Right, right.
I think I always just wanted to play an instrument, and, later on, as far as the recording and producing my own stuff, I know Todd Rundgren was somewhat of an influence after I heard that he had, played and produced a whole album by playing all the instruments. I thought, that's an interesting concept,
Right. Is that kind of what inspired you to learn and play everything yourself?
A little bit of it was necessity. Also, through playing in many, many bands, it was really hard to, I guess I didn't front all these bands either. A lot of the bands I was in, we were a unit. Everyone wrote the songs together and stuff. But I found later on, when I started getting more into the early days of Mark of Mach FoX, and a little bit before that, when I became the front man of the band and wanted to have maybe a certain element to the sound, it was hard to convey that to other people and get them to, you either get lucky and find people who are really into what you're doing, or I also had such a range of influences, it was hard for me to explain to people where I was going sometimes with a song. So it just seemed easier for me to, play and record and write and produce it myself, and then find some friends to be the band to play the songs if I could convince them to come along,
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the new EP you got coming out, New Pretty Dead. What's the inspiration behind it?
It's, I'm influenced by a lot of art and film almost as much as other music, I would say, and it's pretty much set in a H.R. Geiger type world, and I'd say, a lot of my themes in songwriting used to be about space and robots, and I think now it's more into the death of society and what little's going to be left and what resources are going to be left, and, now I've latched onto the post-apocalyptic thing.
Right. Right. And I
sort of where New Pretty comes from.
Right. I kind of really picked up on that from listening to the new EP. I like it an awful lot. I think it's your sound keeps maturing and your production gets better and better every time I hear something new from you.
Well, thanks, Gabe. I do spend a lot of time experimenting and kind of searching for sounds. I used to use a lot of hardware sequencing, but I'd always try to move things around or have a certain element that created a human feel, so people might at least have to wonder for a moment, or they wouldn't be hung up on the fact, it's a drum machine and synth band with a guitar.
Right.
I didn't want to be that simplified, so I hope people don't know. And New Dead Pretty actually has my friend Chris McAtee playing my Simmons drum kit as an additional drum track, so that does have some live drumming on it.
Right, so it gives it that more human feel to it.
Yep.
You do a lot of remixes too. You do a lot of remixes for a lot of different artists. You've worked with me on remixes, stuff like that. You work with people all over the world. How do you hook up with people, and how do you get people, and how do you get yourself out there for people to know that you do that work?
I generally kind of, not that I'm so exclusive, but I try to hand pick the people who I ask to remix my songs and collaborate with. If I hear something that's special that they've got, a sound that I think, wow, I wish I could make a track like this, but I know that unless I want to sit down and study what they do, that's their sound, that's their specialty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I do something in a darker pop rock electronic vein. I think there's people who do like these club bangers that I just don't do,
Right.
That's why I ask people to remix my stuff. And as far as me remixing them, yeah, if I hear a band that I like, I might just offer, say, hey, you want to remix? A few have been through contacts and people, saying, hey, check this out. Do you want to remix this? But,
right.
I'm not so in demand that I'm so busy. So if anyone needs a remix, I'm going to give it a try.
Right.
They don't always work out, and sometimes I bored them,
Yeah.
But the one for you guys was fun because I knew I wanted to do it, so I was motivated.
Right.
And then it just worked out. I really understood your style of music and what you guys were doing too, so.
Right. Yep, I get it.
It wasn't too hard to latch onto that.
Yeah. Tell me how, you're a true independent artist. You're signed to a small label. You do most of the promotion, most of the legwork yourself. Is it becoming harder to get your stuff in front of people, or do you think with the coming of the internet and the age that we're in now that it's getting easier for you to get your music in front of your audience?
Well, that's definitely how I can get in contact with people in other countries, and obviously most musicians nowadays, I'd say 99% of them use the internet for their promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the way I look at it is the record labels that I seek out also. I want to find record labels who are interested in developing, a good sound and a roster of artists, but they also will work as hard as I do. Then I feel like it's an equal partnership.
Right.
Because none of us are, independently making any money barely from this. So it's more the exposure. I suppose touring is still an aspect that I'm not doing right now.
Right.
Kind of holding off to see how the next album comes together and if there's a demand to be on the road. But I kind of feel like that and the internet are a great promotion tool. You can't beat it.
Yeah.
Getting people to the shows, getting the word out that you're on the road.
Right.
That's where it becomes extremely useful.
Right. Do you like touring?
I love it. However, I don't like, twisting people's arms to go on the road and, forming the band and, that part of it seems harder now than it was, say, 15 years ago. The group of friends and musicians I hang out with are just, different places in life, I suppose.
Right. Right. People get, they start getting married, they have family, they have kids, they have jobs now. It's got to be frustrating that, you keep after it and then your cohorts kind of start falling away.
Well, and that's why I have pushed more for the remixes and production work. I feel like I enjoy that as much as touring. It's just, they're two different things,
Right.
And having a band and rehearsing weekly to play a few shows in town really seemed like it sucked more time away from production and me getting to that new sound that I'm always looking for. The remixes too, they give me a chance to use all the effects and the tricks that I love in my production.
Mm-hmm.
And probably overuse, but I can use them on someone else's track, and then I can also use things they've done to inspire me and influence my next recording. So
right.
That's the production. I think right now is just more interesting to me and more rewarding.
Right.